Okay, so pleasant good day again. Our topic is the surrendered life. A surrendered life. In Galatians 2:20, it says, "For I am impaled with Hamashiach. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Yahushua Hamashiach that liveth in me. And the life I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of Yah, who loved me and gave himself for me." So we see here that we now came out from a week of prayer and fast, and we looked at what it is to please Yahuwah. We looked at what it is to pray, right? The importance of prayer and fast, and all these different things we looked at within the week. But if we do all of that and we fail to surrender, because up to last night we looked at what it was that was troubling and plaguing Yasharel, and that was a revolting spirit, a spirit of rebellion. So what the Most High is saying to us, I believe, is that even as we do all of that, we need to learn to surrender. To surrender. To surrender, we say, not our will, but let your will be done. Now, according to the Webster Dictionary, the word surrender simply means to yield to the power. That's it. To yield to the power, control, or possession of another upon compulsion or demand. So when we talk about having a surrendered life, we are talking about yielding ourselves to a greater power. Because we of ourselves, we are nothing. The Creator, He is the sovereign one. And because He had created all things, we must now yield our will to Him. Psalm 68:1 says, "Let Yahuwah arise and let his enemies be scattered, and let them also that hate him flee before him." We looked at 1 Peter 4:2, that he no longer should live the rest of his time in the flesh of the lust of men, but to the will of Yahuwah. And we must ask ourselves, if in all that we do, if we truly are surrendering our will to Yahuwah. Because anything that is important, anything that worth fighting for, it means that you will have to sacrifice something for it. But what I've observed is that some don't want to give up anything. They want Yahuwah. He sacrificed his son for us. But what are we willing to sacrifice? The songwriter said, "I give myself away. I give myself away." Why? Because the life that we live is not our life. And we must know that Yahushua Mashiach says that he is the one that lives in us. He says that we are bought with a price. Our life is not our own. And if we recognize that our life is not our own, then it will be incumbent upon us to serve him, to give him our all. That's all he asks. To give him our heart. To surrender your will to his will. And I love it. I love what the scripture talks about. Because all in all, we must live a surrendered life. And like I said earlier, it means to strip ourselves of ego, pride, and just allow Yahuwah to take control of your life. Allow him to take control. And I believe it's only until we reach a point For some people, Yahuwah have to put you flat on your back in order for you to acknowledge him. To acknowledge him. But we want, in this last day of our prayer and fast, to not get caught up. We don't want to be lost. We want to ensure that at the end of the day, that people understand why they are here, why, and what Yahuwah demands of them. We talked about seeking him, about coveting his presence, wanting his presence, seeking his face. But all of that must have a surrendered life. Must have a surrendered life. Yahushua Mashiach, we saw that he, scripture says in Philippians chapter 2. I'll take it up from verse 5. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Yahushua Mashiach, who being in the form of Yahuwah, thought it not robbery to be equal with Yah, because he is Yah. He's the Torah, he's the Dabar word. He's the Dabar word. And as the word that was spoken, the Ruach HaKodesh brought everything into life. But we know that it is Yahuwah that brought things into being. So it's not Trinity, people. So he says here, being made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being formed in the fashion of a man, he humbled himself, and became obedient unto death, even death upon the stake. He said, and because of this, because of the fact that he learned obedience, he learned what it was to submit to the will of Yahuwah. And we looked at that last night, in that he was crying out. He says, can you not watch with me for 1 hour? But not my will, let your will be done. Because he understood purpose, he understood that he had to live a surrendered life to the Most High. So as a man, he demonstrated that to us. Our goals, yes, we may have wonderful goals, things we want to accomplish in life. But at the end of the day, when you receive the call from Yahuwah and you know his voice, you will know that whatsoever you had purpose to do, you have to ask yourself if it is his will, and allow his will to take precedence in your life. His will. So he said he fashioned himself as a man and humbled himself, and became obedient unto death, even death upon the stake. And wherefore Yahuwah also had highly exalted him, and given him a name that is above every other name. Now he was given the name, and he was highly exalted because of his submission, because he lived a surrendered life. And like I said earlier, surrendered means simply yielding up your power, your own power, your will, and everything to the Most High. So Yahushua Mashiach, he also had us to learn submission. And we said he demonstrated that by surrendering his life to the will of the Most High. But what I look at, it says that this life we live is not our life, is not our own. For we are bought with a price. And the reason he said that this life we live is not our own, but is Yahushua Mashiach that liveth in us. Because he understands very well our nature. And that is why he told Kepha in 1 Peter 1:14. He said, as obedient children, do not fashion yourselves according to the former lust in your ignorance. What was the former lust? The former lust was when we lusted after the flesh in Galatians 5:19 and 20. Because we know what are the lusts of the flesh, the works of the flesh. The works of the flesh are this. He said, now the works of the flesh are manifested, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanliness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variances, emulation, wrath, strife, sedition, heresies, envying, murders, drunkenness, revelling, and such like, of which I tell you before, as I have told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of Yah. Why is this important? Because he made it clear to us. He said that we must not fashion ourselves according to our former lust when we were in the world. And these were the things, these were our appetite. Not appetizers, it was our appetite. Yes, like this is the main cause that we will gravitate after. The adultery, fornication, uncleanliness. And you might say, well, I was never in adultery. But you might have been in fornication. You might have been in lasciviousness. You might have been in revelry. You might have been in envy, drunkenness. And the Most High is saying that when you have been redeemed, we must not go back to this lust of the flesh. Don't go back to it. Going back to Peter, let us look at Peter. Right, that is 1 Peter 4:2. He says here, let us bisect it, that we should no longer live the rest of our time in the flesh. In the flesh. And that's what I was talking about earlier. In the flesh, talking about the lust of our past. The appetite we had prior. Lust of the flesh, which is the works of the flesh. And the lust of men is the thing that our soul lusted after. Yahuwah is saying, don't gravitate towards that. Don't go back to it. So we can pray and fast. And after the fast is done, you go back like a dog to the same old way. We must be able to discern when envy, when strife, emulation, hatred, right? Revelry and what again? Adultery, fornication, the works of the flesh. We must be able to discern when it wants to raise its head in our life. And we put it under control of the Ruach HaKodesh. Because when you accepted Yahushua Mashiach, don't feel that the temptation will cease. Don't think it would stop. The enemy will continue to try and try and try just to get you from losing your crown. And that is why we must set our eyes upon the bigger prize, knowing that there is a crown waiting for us, for those that hold fast to the Most High words. All right? So don't compromise your integrity. Don't compromise that. But continue to be firm and continue to be strong. It says here, but to the will of Yahuwah. And we fully well know what the will of Yahuwah is. The scripture says that the will of Yah is to keep his commandments, is to be obedient to him. Is to be obedient. The psalmist David was another one. Also demonstrated what it is to have a surrendered life. Because the one time that he heard, Yahuwah didn't just give him a blind. He went after Bathsheba, the Hittite wife. And Yahuwah penalized him for it. When he came to his senses, he confessed the sin towards Yahuwah. And Yahuwah now made everything right again. He restored him. He restored him. But read the Psalms and see how Dawood cried out to Yahuwah, begging him to wash me and make me whiter than snow. Forgive me, cleanse me with hyssop, purge me. Because he understood and he saw his iniquity, he saw his filthiness. So he had to surrender his will to the Most High. Had he played proud and arrogant, he would have been destroyed. But he humbled himself as a man, submitting his will to Yahuwah's will. And in so doing, we saw in Psalm 68 verse 1, after Yahuwah restored him, you would see Psalm 68 talks about the true and the living Yah, the true and the living one. And he opened by saying, let Yahuwah arise and let his enemies be scattered. He said, and let them also that hate him flee from before him. Why did he say that? Because he understood that there was a covenant. There's a covenant between Yahuwah and his people, that when the people did what was right, he said, I will fight for you. I will fight for you. So it's only when you can live a submitted life, a life surrendered to Yahuwah, surrendering yourself and doing the things pleasing to the Most High. It's only then he will become an enemy to your enemies. It's only then he will rise up and fight for you. But tonight, I want us to remember that we fight an enemy that we cannot see. Where every time we go to sleep at night, we must commit our soul in the hands of the Father. For we know not if we may see tomorrow. And in so doing, we put the enemy to flee by asking the Father to fight against those that fight against us. And declare, let Yahuwah arise. Let Yahuwah arise. And let his enemies be scattered.